Welcome to the Manuchehri podcast. Over the last 30 years, it has been my joy to assist humanity in aligning with their magnificence so they may heal, discover their natural gifts, and communicate with loved ones living on the other side. May you also experience delight while we dance in the powerful, intuitive world of energy. Let's get going. Hello and welcome to Where Energy Meets the Divine. I'll be your host for hopefully the next hour. I'm recording this on April 6th, 2025 in the Pacific Northwest. I think it's important for us to talk about relationships. I mean, all kinds of relationships. But when I look at a lot of people who are in partnerships, I see a lot of people who aren't really happy, aren't really fulfilled, don't feel very free. Now, there can be all kinds of reasons for that, but because at least in the United States, we have a very high divorce percentage, 55%. So more than half of people who enter into a marriage, which is a form of partnership, end in divorce, which is fascinating. And I really think the biggest problem here is people not knowing themselves very well. They don't know what really would make them happy. Mostly women tend to be their caregivers in heterosexual relationships. When I look at people who are in same-sex relationships, they tend to have better insight into who they are. They tend to have healthier partnerships, from my perception, better communication, because they had to learn a lot about themselves just because, unfortunately, same-sex relationships isn't, easily accepted around the globe. Unfortunately, it's getting better. It's improving. I'm very happy about that. But individuals who've had to spend some time alone and reevaluate and get clarity about who they are and what they want, when they move into partnership, they move in a very healthy place in their own system. They can feel when something's not in alignment with themselves, whether it's something they need to do or something they need to communicate in a partnership, which also makes them a lot more successful at work, because you could be in a work environment, which is a type of partnership. It could be a partnership with one person, a boss, or a whole bunch of people, a team that you work with. And again, we see a lot of people, particularly women, but men can do this as well, fall into these people-pleasing patterns where they work too hard, they overgive in their partnerships, and they don't know what they want, they don't know what they deserve. And then after a while, because typically people who overgive and over-nurture, not all of them, because I have friends who are over-nurturers who are in amazing partnerships, but they picked a partner who is also nurturing and compassionate and giving to them as well, right? So you don't build up all this resentment and disappointment and wishing things were different when you've had more time to get to know yourself. I've heard the phrase often, your wedding day, and this is mostly when people are talking to women, will be the happiest day of your life. And I find that statement, yikes, unhealthy. I hope every day is the happiest day of our lives. And that's really what we need to be working towards, is being a lot more present, a lot more independent in terms of our desires, our fulfillment. You can certainly have and create and manifest things in relationships. But if people don't have that already established inside of them, and then they get married, and if a family is going to be created in this marriage, then that's a lot of energy. Or maybe people are building businesses and buying homes, and it's a lot of energy that's going into manifesting, whether it's children or residencies, and that can be distracting. That can also feel very fulfilling. But once those things are established, if you haven't figured out what floats your boat as an individual, it can create a lot of problems in a relationship. So even if you are married, even if things, aren't great right now, know that the sooner you can figure out what's in your best interest, what makes you happy as an individual, not as a married person, not as a parent, not as a grandparent, an uncle or an aunt. You want to take away those identifying factors, because those are just a small aspect of who you are. You are a being of light. You are highly connected to source energy. You are God. And the bigger picture of all things, we all are one, right? We're all connected to source energy. So being focused on yourself as a being of light, as a spirit, getting curious about that. What does that mean to me? How do I be in alignment with this type of fulfillment so that if you do decide to marry, or if you are married and let's say you've been raised in a family and now you're done with that, they've moved on, or they're in high school and they're beginning to move in different directions. Hi, Charles. Just opened up the door to my office. I tried to get you to come in earlier. Then you're going to be in this beautiful awareness of who you are, besides all these external human-made descriptions of who you are. And you're more than human. Human is also just one aspect of who you are. You're a being of light. You've had many, many lifetimes. So I think we need to get out of these very old, stereotypical, limited identifications of, we grow up to meet a partner, to fall in love, which is lovely, but you can fall in love with rocks, dogs, lakes, friendships. There's all kinds of things to love in the world, and devote all your energy and time to these relationships who may not be offering the same type of devotion in kind. And I think that's where the problem is. And we can't expect everyone to devote their energy towards us in the way that we devote our energy towards others. But if you choose partnership in a way that's in your best interest, that's the type of partner you need. Someone who's just as devoted to you as you are devoted to them. And again, this partnership could be work related, could be a best friend, doesn't have to be a romantic partner, but whoever these partners are for you, that's the true key ingredient, that this partner is just as devoted to your full expansion and your internal fulfillment as much as you are to them. Not who's going to bring home the most money, who's going to stay home with the kids if there's children involved, who's going to pick out all the furniture. Not those things. Those are lovely. Those are interesting things, but they're limited. They don't bring the fulfillment that humans thought that it would. Maybe it did decades ago. Maybe, but it doesn't bring the fulfillment long-term for the majority of people. It can feel very limiting, almost like being in a prison, even if you don't have children, if you're not pursuing your own fulfillment, and if you don't feel supported to have your own fulfillment pursued. So how are we going to fix this? I think people need to stay single longer. I think they need to live alone. I think they need to figure out how to be happy all on their own instead of just hanging out with a bunch of people and marrying the first person that seems okay. I think people need to really look at relationships, whether it's a work relationship, a best friend relationship, or a romantic relationship. Can this person hold the light for me so I can shine as brightly as possible, so I can feel supported to shine my light as brightly as possible? Because that's going to create a long-term relationship. And so the more people spend time alone, and some people, at least in my generation, didn't spend a lot of time alone. They got married young, moved in with their partner before they even had their own place. Or maybe they were in college, and so they had some kind of alone time in a dorm or an apartment. But that's not really alone time either. That's a lot of party time and outward energetic time. So we really need to reevaluate this, because we don't want the circumstances to continue. Maybe in the future, we won't have marriages like we have today. Perhaps we have to revamp that whole type of relationship. One of my long-term clients said to me once that she thought marriage licenses need to be renewable. Maybe it costs $40 or $500. It's sliding scale depending on your income level. And every 5 years, you have to sit down with your partner, because if you don't pay the renewable license, kind of like the tabs on your car, if you don't pay the renewable license, you're not married. You don't have that bond any longer. And you sit down and go, how's it working for you? Are you happy? What do you want? What do you want? Like everyone's asking each other these beautiful, important questions because they look at others beyond marriage, beyond parenthood, beyond working relationships, because not everything lasts forever. I talk to people who've lost their partners. They've moved on to another dimension and they don't know how to proceed in life because they don't know how to be alone. They've never had that experience. And being alone is supposed to be fulfilling, rewarding, and enjoyable. It's actually a very beautiful experience to learn how to connect and live with yourself happily and in a fulfilled place. And that's just one example of what could happen. If someone's been devoted to a relationship and they've created all the material things that they needed, including perhaps children or pets, and now, this person lost their job. Maybe they got laid off. Maybe the company had a fold and they don't know who they are because maybe a big pillar of their identification was this job where they worked for someone else, even if it didn't bring them joy. So I think as a society, and I'm talking mostly about Americans, I can't speak for all the other cultures in the world, we need to learn to have more time alone and get clear about what we need, what we want, because I have a sneaky suspicion a fair amount of people will choose not to be in a bonded union like marriage. Does it mean that they may not choose to have children together? They still could. They could live next door to each other or across the street, and the children could go back and forth. I just think that it's time for us to have a change. And unlike what's happening in the US government right now, and of course, this wouldn't happen anyway, because the marriage institution is what has allowed for certain false perceptions to continue in the human reality, where getting a divorce is super complicated and very expensive, as if we're supposed to stay married to the same person for 50, 60, 70 years when you're not happy. That's a problem. And so I think when people learn to be alone, they learn how to understand themselves, and they can tell when they're confused or when they're clear. And that alone time allows them, when they're not alone, when they're in unions, however that union manifests for them, they can still get clarity about this is great for me or this isn't great for me. So I think this is something that will definitely positively help humans be happier, live longer, and have unique family representation. But just like how the government's having its explosion moments and there's nothing really there to take its place, I don't see that happening in the marriage sector. I think it'll be more from people making decisions to be creative about relationships. That means we also need to be creative about health insurance. Like, what if one person is raising children for a while, whether it's a same-sex partner or even a male raising children for a while, because I think that's lovely. We need to make sure that even if people are now married to one another, that they can have shared health insurance to take care of one another. Yeah, so all of these kind of dinosaur rules of conduct and what's okay and what's not okay when it comes to family and living together or not living together, that needs a complete overhaul, truly, in all of Earth. And I think some places already have begun that. I'd be curious to hear about Norway's, relatability in Iceland. I would love to know how they organize family structures. Is it set in stone, kind of like the US is, or is it something that has a little bit more flexibility and is cherished to be unique? Yeah, I have a sneaky suspicion about some of that. Okay. So we're having this conversation for several reasons. One, I do think we need to reevaluate relationships. And I understand why some people don't want to be alone. I get it. But how are you going to know yourself? And how can you allow another person in your life who can actually get to know you when you don't know who you are, when you don't know what you want, when you don't know what's fulfilling for you? Then you're having a very limited relationship. It could be that the relationship is all about the other person who wants someone to take care of them, right? And that's not healthy either. No, everybody needs to pull their own weight in a relationship. Everyone. And so that means our relationships need to be creative. But one of the reasons why we're having this conversation is because I would love for you regularly to strip away what you think is an identifying characteristic of who you are. Your gender, your age, your education, your marital status or single status, your work status, your educational status, whether you are a parent or an uncle or an aunt. I want you to start to strip those away. Get curious about, well, what if I'm not a woman? We're not asking you to have, changes to your anatomy and your physiology. We're just asking you to kind of remove the veil of these very strong, limited control type limitations that are very present throughout the world. So you're not a woman or you're not a man. There are a lot of people on earth, actually. If we were to look at their genetics, they probably aren't who they are. In fact, I recently read an article where organizations like 23andMe have a group of counselors who get a hold of clients, people who've purchased their product and given their DNA samples, who wrote down their gender, but according to their DNA, they're not that gender. Because some people can look outwardly a certain gender, but internally have different body parts, and it's based on chromosomes, right? So they have this group of people, counselors, who contact these people because maybe they do know their genetic status, but so far, the majority of them do not, which could greatly affect their health care. Because if they have more female hormones, but the outside of their body looks masculine, they need different type of medicine potentially. Interesting, right? So if we could all strip away these identifying factors, like maybe in a meditation, you can close your eyes and just say to yourself, what if I don't have an age? What if I don't have an education? What if I've never gone to school? What if I don't have a partner? What if I don't have a job? Just want you to strip it away, strip it away, strip it away. And it may feel kind of uncomfortable. You may notice a few places where you go, ugh, kind of inside, like, oh, I don't want to strip that away. Like, oh, you know that that's a strong identity for who you believe you are. But we want to strip these away even momentarily so that you can allow other aspects of yourself to come in and awaken you and inspire you and get you to move in a different direction, whatever that direction is, but some interesting, creative, powerful, more authentic direction. So I'm encouraging you to do that. It's fun to do. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to the phone lines now. And so for those of you who've never listened to my podcast before, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for liking and subscribing. People can go to my website, energyintuitive.com, go to the podcast page, and there's instructions on how to leave a voicemail. I think you get like 3 minutes to ask a question. I prefer one question, and then I will intuitively answer it for you. Okay, so that's where I'm going to go now, is to the questions that I have. A lot of questions, so it can take months for me to answer your question. Okay.
Hi, Marie. My name is Kendra. I live in Edmonds, Washington. And so I wanted to ask you a question, two questions. One about my son, Callum. He has a challenge in terms of sensory processing and some ADHD-like symptoms. We had a struggle with him when he was 4 years old. He took a medication commonly given for constipation, and it really caused a lot of damage to him in terms of his neurological function and also his gut. And so after 5 days on this medication, he basically stopped talking, and he had a lot of ADHD symptoms. He developed motor and verbal tics. We really went through a challenge for a couple of months where he wasn't talking at all. Did speech therapy. We found a naturopath. We're actually now on a different naturopath that is really specifically for children. And so we're doing some alternative healing for him. But I just feel like we still struggle with his sensory processing. He's got a lot of distraction issues. He's not really been diagnosed yet because it's, really hard to determine if this is something that's going to last for a long time or if this is just something that his body has to work through. So I was just wondering if you can see anything with him, if you see him having these struggles and challenges for a long time, or if this is something that will eventually heal itself. He also hasn't been able to really eat gluten. Gluten has been very inflammatory for his brain since this happened. And ironically, he did not have that before. So do you still see that? I know gluten is not good for any of us, especially here in the States, but it is challenging having a child that can not have gluten. So that's my first question. My second question is more for myself. I consider myself an intuitive, and I actually, my light just flickered as I said that, but I'm not really sure which direction to focus on. I definitely feel like I need to raise my vibration.
Yes.
So my question, and I know that you recommend doing the what if questions to raise vibration. If there's other things I should be doing, if you see something that I should focus on. I've dabbled in tarot. I do have done a couple of different Reiki courses. I've actually done level 1 twice, and I should probably just do level 2 and 3. But if there's something that you say I should focus on, if this is something that could be like a career for me, or maybe just supplementing my career. But if my guides have anything to say about this, I would love to hear from them as well. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that you do. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
You're welcome, Kendra. I'm sorry about your son's sensitivities. I want you to know that the medication isn't exactly what caused this. I know it seems like it. I think he was on a slippery slope, and a number of things could have flipped him over. So when people have something immune going on, which is how I would classify this, it may appear that, oh, that vaccine flipped it, or because I know of someone who lost hearing after a vaccine. But what I felt intuitively is they would have lost their hearing. It was one ear, I believe, regardless. If it wasn't the vaccine, it would have been something else. So what happens sometimes is that our sensitivities are so precarious that something like a drug that wouldn't involve or cause harm to other people pushes us over. But if it hadn't been this medication, something else would have eventually, probably within a short period of time. Your son has his own sensory perception, his own unique sensory perception. And I'm glad he's recovered most of these symptoms, because that's what I see. It was short-term kind of a situation. I wouldn't look at it like it's going to be forever. You do need to change the way you feel about this. I think in terms of even supporting your own intuition, you need to fall in love with yourself deeply, which is an emotional experience. It's not words. It's not thoughts. It's an actual experience, and start to feel, because I feel like this responsibility regarding, all parents feel responsible for their kids no matter what, but that doesn't help you to flourish in your self-loving aspect. Your child wanted to have these experiences, wanted to have his immune system a little like, I would not put him back on gluten. And I agree with you. It's not really bothering him right now, but he has a lot of sensitivities, which I think is a blessing, actually. I think if we look at our young kids who have sensitivities as they're new thinkers, they're bringing a new approach to how we're going to experience life, even into the educational system, because once we have kids who require different sensory perceptions, then we start to change our educational system, and then we find all this genius inside all these really cool, unique individuals who have different ideas, different perceptions. But yeah, I had this memory as you were speaking. It just happened the other night. I was getting a massage, and when I left the building where I was at, I even thought about, I'm just going to go pick up some takeout or something like that. But as I walked by restaurants that had their doors open and people sitting on patios, I was overstimulated. I was so calm and relaxed in the massage. And I thought, oh, wow, this is what it feels like to be neurosensitive, which I'm sure I am to some degree. But he's just going to need, which would be good for him and all kids anyway. I think our educational system requires a major revamp. Major. That when you're looking at educational systems for him, places that have small class sizes, very aware teachers, because we want this sensitivity that he has to allow for a new way of looking at life and solving problems. It's a gift. I want you to start looking at this as a gift, because that's going to help him not to stay sensitive or to have these issues that he had historically. But instead, you're looking at him under a microscope and wanting everything to be fixed. He doesn't want to be like everyone else. He wants to be unique. And he is. Everyone really is unique. But a lot of people will fall into patterns because they want to be like everyone else. So I think he's going to be fine. And you just need to fall in love with yourself. Okay, thank you.
I'm Charlene from New Jersey. I lost my husband in November of 2022. And I was wondering if there's any messages or where he is. We were together 50 years.
Long time.
I'm basically alone and no one nearby, and I'm 75. And I'm wondering why I'm still here, if there's a purpose.
Yeah.
And I was so attached to him, and everything's a memory. I miss him beyond words, and I'm really struggling. I thank you for all you do in this world. Love you, Marie.
I love you too, Charlene. And I'm so, so sorry for your husband's passing. I truly am. And you are part of what I talked about in the intro, where you devoted your life to your partner. I mean, really, you did. And I'm sure it was very fun and a lot of it was fulfilling. But what about you? That's why you're still here. Although people are going to live a long time these days, and you sound really good to me. 75 is not that far away from the age I have that I am right now, if we're going to look at chronological age. So it's really time for you to explore Charlene, what makes her happy, and not other people. That's not the real answer I haven't met anyone that the real answer is other people. What makes people happy is something unique within inside of them. Sure, other people can make us happy. We can have moments of that happiness, but people can also disappoint us. Like your husband died. That's a disappointment. So we can't make that our only fulfilling experience. So this is about you, and your husband is standing behind you, clapping as I'm speaking. I couldn't see him originally, but as I'm speaking about, this is your time to explore and discover Charlene. And yeah, you're going to have some resistance towards it. You will, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong. Resistance, a lot of it can be, come over here. Come over here. When you have resistance, it really is a sign to move towards that thing that you're resisting. But he's standing behind you and clapping. He says, you deserve this time to yourself. You deserve to figure out what is really fulfilling for you, what would make you ecstatic and smile all day long. He wants that for you. He says everybody devoted their energy to him for his own fulfillment, for his own exploration. And even if you worked outside of the home, it wasn't fulfilling for you. It was okay. I'm sure you made it lovely if you did work outside of the home, but it wasn't fulfilling for you. So this is what he wants for you. He's kissing you all over your face right now, is for you to discover more of your omnipresence, more of your spectacular, incredible self, your mastery. And most people do it, or at least the initial excitement to move into an adventure that way, alone. It is a journey of one's own soul. It's not about a journey with other people as we explore our own soul. As we discover more about ourselves, other people may play a role or be a part of it, like how I'm talking into a mic, giving advice to someone who lives in New Jersey, right? So I would just pray. I would say, thank you, creation, for helping me to discover my magnificence. And then surrender, like let go of that question and become present. And the present moment, a lot of people don't like the present moment. And unfortunately, it's where everything is. I mean, I think it's fortunate, but most people would feel that it's unfortunate because a lot of people don't know how to be present and they don't allow themselves to be present for more than like 2 nanoseconds. But even in this water bottle that's on my desk, it's having its own present moment. Like it's cold to the touch. There's water in there, purified with natural minerals and electrolytes. It's heavy. It has its own universe in here. And when people become present, they start to see that there's universes all around them within their own world, within their own body. There's so much newness and activity happening all the time. So that's what I want you to start to explore, because then you're going to discover the universes within you. But he is kissing you. He tells me, or I would say my impression is, he's not a great communicator, by the way, your husband. He tells me that he doesn't come around as often as you would like, because he wants you to get curious about yourself. You're curious about him. He's fine. I mean, I haven't met a person who's crossed over that wasn't happy or enjoying themselves. Sometimes people who cross, but not very many of them, miss the people who are still in human form. I would say your husband is, in the middle on that. He's not feeling the strong feelings that you're feeling, but he's very much absorbed into an incredible world of uniqueness that we forget about when we're in physical form. But he wants you to get curious about yourself. That's what he wants for you. He goes, when you cross over, Charlene, many years from now, I think you're going to live a long time, Charlene. So, then you guys can talk about all the fun explorations that you had here in the physical. Yes, he will know about them, but to hear it from your voice, from your energy, is kind of cool. And if you're just going to be sitting around, not that, no pressure. Grief is a very subjective experience. But if you're just going to be sitting around, there's not going to be a lot to talk about when you cross over. Okay. Thank you so much.
Hi, Marie. This is Mello calling from Georgia. So the question I have for you is it possible to live in multiple dimensions at the same time? In my sleep, for many decades, I've been having dreams of being a quote-unquote operative, where they are consecutive dreams that never repeat themselves, where I am maneuvering and navigating as an operative on different missions, not only trying to save my life, but also the lives of my family and humanity. So when I wake up, I always feel like I
exhausted.
Have just worked another shift. Yeah. I feel like I'm living a double life in my dreams. I wake up tired and exhausted and in pain. And in conjunction with this, I find myself from time to time doing things in my waking life where I'm using like defensive training, things that I wouldn't even know about or know how to do. And I don't realize that I'm doing it, not until someone sees it and brings it to my attention. Also, I've sustained some injuries where I'm not even sure how I got them in my neck and my arm. And they are similar to someone who may have been in a car accident. And I haven't been in any serious car accidents to have any of these. So that's just one thing. The other part is, in my waking life, I have had conversations with people, but in particular with my mother and my aunt mom. And we would have conversations that are very impactful. Conversations of lessons that I have carried with me into my adulthood. And when I go back to have those conversations with them, they're just like, nope, never happened. Never spoke about that. I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm just like, wait, what? Huh? And so yeah, I ask, is it possible to live in multiple dimensions at the same time? Yeah. I hope you can shed some light on that.
Thank you, Mel. It's a very interesting question. We are having multiple lifetimes at the same time, but Earth is one of the lowest vibrational realities there are. So I don't think that what you're experiencing when you sleep is another dimension of like an Earth experience happening right now. I think a couple things. A, I don't think you're happy. I really don't. I don't think you're happy. I think you're stressed. I think that in your waking hours, and you don't know it, that you are in fight or flight. And so when you go to sleep at night, your body, because a lot of times dreams are actually there to bring us some healing in the psychological aspect of our development, because we're not doing the inner work that needs to be done. And this is true for many, many, many people. And so our dreams are trying to help us to move through, in your case, fight or flight. If these dreams are a reflection of, let's say, another lifetime, then I think they're of a future lifetime that you already had, right? So when people reincarnate, they can reincarnate to the future. They can reincarnate to the past. I think it's a future lifetime that you've already had it. You've already lived it. There's like some memories seeping in. But I believe overall, your being is trying to get you to heal this fight or flight response that you are in often during the day. And that's why you wake up exhausted, because you aren't working on this psychological aspect in your waking hours. And so you're trying to work on it while you're sleeping, and you wake up actually having the knowledge of what you're experiencing when you're awake, but you're unaware of the fact that you're exhausted and worn out when you're awake because you're in fight or flight. I think that, and the fight or flight is not based on logic. It's just an emotional component. You're stuck in fear and fight or flight, and your dreams prove that to us. So the things that you're having with your mother, and I can relate to this, by the way, I really can. Sometimes I feel like I've had conversations with people that I haven't had. And I think it's probably your soul talking to their soul. And so you have a perception of who they are from the soul perspective, because neither your aunt, mom, or your mother have the consciousness to have the conversations that you think you're having with them. They are not. And they do not have a desire to be that awake. They do not. But it's almost as if you're having a soul-to-soul conference with them, which is actually lovely and healing and fun. But you need to recognize that that is not the conversation that they can have with you when they're present, right? So when we're in the present moment, when of their humanness, they don't have the conscious capacity to have those conversations. So you are having a conversation soul to soul, but you need to remember that they're incapable of having that conversation in their human day-to-day life. That's why they don't know what you're talking about, because they literally cannot have those conversations. So you have the capacity to talk to souls, to have soul-to-soul conversations. You need to raise your vibration. It would be critical for you to not be in fight or flight for whatever reason during the day. Learn to be authentically present, fall in love with yourself, so that you can take these skill sets that you have to another dimension that can be really effective and powerful for you. I mean, I'm sure they are wonderful experiences for you, but we want them to be helpful for you and fulfilling for you. And then perhaps they can be utilized helping other people. But so what happens sometimes is, like in your case, let's say, Mel, I think you have obvious psychic abilities, but you have some foundation work to do. This is what happens to, not in your case, but in some cases, like in my family, I think all my siblings are very psychic. My mother's psychic, my grandmother and my great-grandmother were notably psychic. I'm the only one who has a career in the psychic realm for various reasons, but the majority of the reasons are because my siblings don't know how to have, the majority of them, a foundation of happiness or wellness that can allow them to use their psychic gifts professionally. And so it can be really confusing when you don't have a foundation. And the foundation is to be present, to be loving to the best of your ability towards yourself, because you're creation. When we're looking at gifts and talents, we're looking at the bigger aspect of our God selves, whether that's artwork or intuition or gardening, or one of my son-in-laws loves the engineering work that he does. He loves it, so that's part of his gift and his ability and his mastery. So you need some foundation work. Be grounded, be present, love yourself, check on the fear, and don't let it run your life, because it is only one thing, an illusion. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Marie. My name is Sammy from Kentucky, and recently I've started receiving guidance from something that I don't fully understand. When I was younger, I was very logic brain based, which is why having a spiritual connection was kind of surprising to me. Once I figured out what was happening, that is, I neglected myself for years, emotionally and physically, and I ended up having to face a health crisis all on my own because my doctor didn't take my claims seriously at all. I spent the entire year of 2023 researching and forcing my life to change shape in the pursuit of the health that I always took for granted. I arrived at the wrong conclusion for the cause of my problems several times, and despite the fact that I had improved significantly, I accidentally dropped the part of my plan that was causing my improvement. I then overexerted myself with exercise and ended up regressing quite a bit because of a direct connection to that overexertion.
Yeah.
I believe my issues were nutrient and vitamin deficiency driven because of how poorly I took care of myself over, basically my entire life. That was when I started receiving guidance. And the reason I know it's something special and worth listening to and pursuing is because it ran so counter to how I was feeling, with lots of fear and doubt and pain. Repeatedly, I was assured that I had nothing to fear. And once I arrived at what I now believe to be the correct conclusion for the cause of my health problems, I got the distinct message that whatever is guiding me is celebrating. Not that my work is done, but that they're celebrating that I've made it to where I have.
Yes.
Like there was some kind of tipping point or important moment for me that they're happy happened.
Yes.
I think they're even going so far as to say that my future will be far more wonderful and amazing than anything I could possibly imagine, which that's a wild thing for me specifically to think.
Normal.
For years, I was very pessimistic and down on myself.
Normal.
So my question is this: how can I bolster my connection with this loving force? I think the reason I was able to hear it most clearly when I did was because I was in despair, fully open with no interference from my ego. Plus, it's easier to see light when it's in stark relief against darkness than it is to differentiate between light upon light upon light. I'm curious and I want to understand this better. And I'm still grappling with the idea that this is real, but I'm overjoyed at the fact that I'm now open to basically infinite possibilities in my life. I want to disengage from that last little bit of fear and doubt about my health and about wanting to know where my story ends. I want to stay in the not knowing.
Yeah.
And live my life fully.
Thank you so much, Sammy, for your question. And I'm glad you're feeling better. I do think I just have a slightly different perception about it. I think that you had a very poor absorption of nutrients because you ran your energy, and you still do a little bit, on fight or flight, which again goes counterintuitive and counter against anything that's going to help humanity to be free, as you have found out. And sometimes people get sick so that they'll frickin' slow down, take a nap, relax. Of course, you notice when you pumped up your exercise routine, you felt sick again. You didn't feel well. So I think the mucosal lining of your intestinal tract had its own issues, and you weren't absorbing, nutrients from just food and whatever supplements. And sometimes when people are in that way and they see holistic practitioners, the practitioners may give them too many supplements, because if you're not absorbing well, taking tons of supplements is not going to help in the absorption. We have to take it slow. People have to rest. It's important to rest. So your disease happened from overthinking, analyzing, and processing, which to me is a fight or flight experience. Fear, which is an illusion, which then has its unique manifestations for every single person. But for many people, it creates health issues because the fight or flight issue occurs within the adrenal glands, which are part of our hormonal activity, which are part of the immune system. And so then our immunity can fail or become troublesome when people overthink, analyze, and process, i.e. fear. Because when people aren't afraid, they don't analyze things. They learn to be present. So that's what you're learning to do, is to be present, even as you explained all this, but you did a great job. A lot of explaining, right? Still this need to understand it from a logical perspective, when I don't think there's anything really about life that requires a tremendous amount of logic in order for us to be happy, fulfilled, free. So yeah, the universe celebrates everything for all of humanity. Most people can't sense it ever, ever. That's why a lot of people go, where are my spirit guides? I can't hear them. They're right there next to you talking to you. And I don't think that I know it felt like you were in the depths of despair when you had that light turn on for you. I think you let go, which is a very scary thing for humans. Humans are terrified to surrender, yet it's one of the most powerful acts any human being could ever do. That's why in the beginning of our show today, I talked about taking away identifying markers like gender, parenthood, jobs, education. What if I never went to college? What if I never had children? You can kind of feel it just stripping away from you. So what happened, I think, is you surrendered, which is a high vibrational experience. There can be grief around surrendering, which I think is pretty normal for most humans in our need to categorize everything and have everything have a why behind it. And so when we authentically surrender, then you can feel the light. Then the universe always has its light towards us. There's always communication occurring. It's just the majority of the population has no idea and doesn't allow themselves to experience the multisensory world at all. But in that surrender, you could feel humanity or the energy beyond humanity. And that's wonderful. That's exciting. But yes, the more you become present, which is what the universe is asking you to do, which you've literally had to force yourself to be in order to get well, the better your life is going to be. And the universe only wants your life to be beyond joyful and magical. It wants that for everyone on earth and is happily helping everyone to that endeavor. But most people don't know it, don't want to know it, don't believe that it's even possible. And so you're in a very lucky place. And notice how your health issue got you there. So this is why some people get sick. Everyone's different. In other words, not everyone, it's going to be their body that affects them. It could be their bank account. It could be a relationship. But the universe is always, because we've said before we reincarnated to Earth, all of us, we said, I really want to learn these things and have these experiences. And if I don't learn this one thing that I'd really like to learn by, and we pick like some chronological age, then, make something wake me up. Or I like to say the universe, has carte blanche to then pull the rug out from underneath of you. So some people are not frightened when it becomes a body issue. And so the universe affects them in different ways because the universe knows all of our past lives and what triggers us and all of those things. So, you did a great job recovering as you are and have recovering from your health issue and allowing yourself to become aware of the multisensory world. Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment. I'm sure there is much celebration happening on your behalf. And I want to thank everyone for listening to the show today. I had a lot of fun, great questions. And remember to like and subscribe. I have classes coming up. Live in person and live online. I have a self-love class that will begin on the 14th, I believe, so sometime in another week. And then I also have in person, well, I think that class might be sold out. Sorry, the Reiki workshop. I will be teaching a class in October. I haven't finalized my talking points yet, but in Palm Desert, I'll be teaching a 2-day course in one of the hotels there. It'll be an aspect of adoring oneself with intuition, because I think they go hand in hand. Personally, that's what I believe. So that should be really fun. So keep your eyes open for that. And I'll be teaching a class on how to translate your intuition starting in May. You can find that on my website. I will be teaching a course soon on the Shift Network. I can give more details about that as soon as those are presented to me. And then again in the fall, I'll be teaching on the Shift as well. Thank you so much, everybody. And I hope those of you who ordered your What If cards, which you can find on my website, I hope you're enjoying them. And I hope they're raising your vibration and that you're manifesting incredible things in your life. Bye-bye for now.